Celebrity status has a way of stripping the humanity from people. Fame, fortune, and influence often make these people feel like they're above the law. Gary Glitter was a former British glam rock superstar who saw most of his success in the 70s and 80s. His song Rock and Roll Parts 1 and 2 is one of the most popular songs of all time. His song Rock and Roll Christmas was one of the most played Christmas songs of all time. However, he was discovered to be a serial sex offender, and his career was tarnished from that point on. Here is the story about the downfall of Gary Glitter. Paul Francis Gadd was born in Banbury, Oxfordshire on May 8, 1944. He never knew his father, while his mother worked as a cleaner. She initially brought him up with the help of her mother. He was hard to control and was taken into local authority care at the age of 10, along with his brother. Although he was supposedly Protestant, he was educated at a Catholic school, where he frequently ran away to London visiting nightclubs where he would later launch his career. By the time he was 16, he was already performing at London clubs. His career grew as he appeared at such venues as the Two Eyes in Soho and the Laconda and Safari clubs. His repertoire included early rock and roll standards and gentle ballads. Gadd gained his first break when film producer Robert Hartford Davis discovered him and financed a recording session for Decca Records. In January 1960, at the age of 15, under the stage name Paul Raven, he released his first single, Alone in the Night. A year later, with a new manager, Vic Billings, he signed a new recording contract with Parlophone and worked with record producer George Martin, who would later go on to work on all of the Beatles albums. Martin produced two singles, Walk On Boy and Tower of Strength, but neither of these singles sold well, and his record career as Paul Raven stalled as a result. Gadd had married Ann Merton in July of 1963. They had a son who was also named Paul, who was born in 1964, and a daughter named Sarah, who was born in 1966. But they divorced in 1972. By 1964, Gadd was reduced to working as an assistant and playing the warm-up for the British music television program Ready, Steady, Go. He did numerous TV commercials and film auditions, and in the course of those activities met arranger and record producer Mike Leander, who eventually helped revive his career. Still using the name Paul Raven, Gadd joined the Mike Leander Show band in early 1965. He was then asked to produce a few recording sessions for such artists as Thane Russell and a Scottish band called The Poets. After Leander's group disbanded, he formed Boston International with saxophonist John Rosal and spent the following 5 years touring the UK and West Germany. From 1968 to 1970, several singles including Musical Man, Goodbye Seattle, and a cover version of the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun were released. As the glam movement took off in 1971, Paul Raven changed his name to Gary Glitter, which he devised by using alliteration of what letters of the alphabet, working backwards from Z. Other options included Terry Tinsel, Stanley Sparkle, and Vicky Vomit. The song that made Gary Glitter's name began as a 15-minute jam session. That was cut down to a pair of 3-minute extracts and released in 1972 as the A-side and B-side of a single called Rock and Roll Parts 1 and 2. Part 2 proved to be the more popular side in many countries, although it took about 6 months before it made its full impact, going to number 2 on the UK singles charts and reaching the top 10 in the United States, one of the few British glam rock records to do so. Part 1 was also a hit. It was a number 1 in France and in UK. Both sides were listed together on the charts. Rock and Roll was followed by other hit songs over the next 3 years. Glitter, backed by the Glittermen or the Glitter Band on stage, competed with Sweet, Slade, and T-Rex for domination of the charts. To reinforce his image, he reportedly owned 30 glitter suits and 50 pairs of silver platform boots. He also released several singles which were UK top 10 hits, with I'm the Leader of the Gang, I Am, being his first single to reach the number 1 position in the summer of 1973, and I Love You, Love Me Love, his follow-up, his second number 1. Remember Me This Way went to number 3. He had 11 consecutive top 10 singles, from Rock and Roll Parts 1 and 2 in 1972 to Doing All Right with the Boys in the summer of 1975. Part 2 of Rock and Roll caught on as a popular sports anthem in North America. Despite his success in the UK, Glitter never made the same impact in America, where at best, glam rock was seen as a curiosity. Glitter had one more entry in the US charts with I Didn't Know I Loved You Till I Saw You Rock and Roll. After that, the closest chart success for Glitter was a cover recording of I'm the Leader of the Gang I Am by Brownsville Station. After doing alright with the boys, Glitter won the award for Best Male Artist at the Saturday Scene Music Awards hosted by London Weekend Television. His next release was a cover of the Rebbietons' doo-wop song, Papa Mau Mau, but it got no higher than number 38 on the British charts. After subsequent releases stalled in similar fashion, Glitter announced his retirement from the music industry to start a family life with his new partner in early 1976. That same year, his first hits package, simply titled Greatest Hits, was released. It entered the UK Top 40 bestseller charts. By 1976, Glitter faced declining record sales. He took a 2-year-long exile, living in France and Australia before returning to the UK and beginning his comeback. His career had taken a downturn near the end of the 1970s, leading him to declare bankruptcy in 1977, though he later blamed the high tax rate of the UK at the time. Under immense financial pressure, not even a pair of top 40 hit singles could lift him all the way back. It took the post-punk audience and some of its artists who still respected his work to do that. He had been an influence on post-punk, new wave, Britpop, and glam metal, as well as early punk rock itself around this time. Glitter had settled into becoming a performer with a niche following. This helped provide the opportunity for Glitter to cut a dance medley for his greatest hits, All That Glitters, which charted in 1981. Within 3 years, he was playing 80 shows a year at colleges and nightclubs, and had chart hits Dance Me Up, which reached number 25 on the charts, and Another Rock and Roll Christmas, which reached number 7 on the charts. In 1987, Glitter received a 10-year driving ban and narrowly escaped imprisonment after a third conviction for DUI. During this decade, Glitter had become a Buddhist and a vegetarian. He opened a restaurant near Leicester Square in 1991, with Gary's Glitter Bar being promoted under the slogan Leader of the Snack, but the restaurant closed a few years later. Glitter also launched his own record label in the early 1990s, Attitude Records, after he lost his deal with Virgin Records. He had signed with Virgin after leaving Arista Records in 1984 after 12 years with the label. He was the subject of an episode of This Is Your Life in 1992. During the episode, Glitter's friend Tessa Dahl said, Gary actually came to live in my house when he was between jobs. My sister Lucy turned it into quite a successful venture because she used to pack the train full of her adolescent school friends in school uniforms and then Skype school. And she'd bring them up to the house and charge them £5 a head to come and gaze at Glitter. Glitter can be seen putting his fingers to his lips and telling Dahl to shush as Dahl begins to talk about the adolescent girls. This is where everything just goes downhill. In November 1997, Glitter was arrested after a technician discovered pornographic images of children on the hard drive of a laptop that he had taken into a computer repair shop in Bristol. Further images were discovered by police during searches of his home in London and Wedmore. He was chastised in the media over the allegations. Additionally, his appearance in the Spice Girls musical comedy film Spice World was cut, though an edit of the scene featuring a version of Glitter's I'm the Leader of the Gang, I Am was retained in the film. At Bristol Crown Court on November 12, 1999, Mr. Justice Butterfield sentenced Glitter to 4 months in prison and placed him on the sex offender register in the UK after he admitted downloading more than 4,000 items of child pornography. He was acquitted of a charge of having sex with a 14-year-old girl with whom he had a relationship with in the late 70s. It was later revealed that the girl sold her story to the News of the World and stood to earn more money from the newspaper should Glitter be convicted. Following his release in January 2000, Glitter decided to leave the UK where he had become a quote-unquote public hate figure, I wonder why, and fled on his yacht to Spain. He lived in Sota Grande in Andalusia for 6 months on his yacht. He told the locals that his name was Larry Brilliante and spent his time frequenting local bars and surfing the internet. After his real identity became known in Sota Grande, he moved to Cuba and later to Cambodia, where he rented an apartment in Phnom Penh. In late 2002, he was detained over his previous sex offenses and spent 4 days in jail before being released on bail. In January 2003, he was deported from Cambodia to Thailand on a flight to Bangkok. He subsequently settled in Vietnam. In March 2005, Glitter resided in Vung Tau, Vietnam, where he rented a luxury seaside villa and applied for permanent Vietnamese residency. He came to the attention of Vietnamese authorities after being banned from a nightclub for allegedly groping a teenage waitress. Eyewitnesses also reported seeing him take 2 young girls into his home. On November 12th, he fled. A 15-year-old girl was found living in his flat and was questioned by authorities. Police began searching for him, and he was arrested on November 20th at Tan Son Nhat International Airport in Ho Chi Minh City while trying to board a flight to Bangkok. 6 Vietnamese girls, with the youngest being 11 years old, claimed that Glitter had had sex with them. After his arrest, Glitter was turned over to provincial police from Vung Tau and held on suspicion of having sex with the 2 underage girls. Glitter was held in jail throughout the criminal investigation, which was completed on December 26th. The charge of rape was dropped for lack of evidence, although Glitter admitted that an 11-year-old girl had slept in his bed. Glitter could have faced execution by firing squad if found guilty of child rape. After receiving compensatory payments from Glitter, the families of the girls appealed for clemency for him. Nothing says not guilty like paying off the victims. On March 2nd, 2006, Glitter was tried on charges of committing obscene acts with 2 girls aged 10 and 11, facing up to 14 years in prison if convicted. The following day, he was found guilty and sentenced to 3 years in prison. The sentence included mandatory deportation at the end of his sentence in payment of 5 million Vietnamese dong, which would be $315 in American money, and this would be paid to his victims' families. Glitter continued to deny any wrongdoing, claiming to have been framed by British tabloid newspapers. In an interview with the BBC News in May of 2006, Glitter denied that he was a pedophile and claimed not to have knowingly had sex with anyone under 18. You literally just admitted that an 11-year-old was in your bed, but carry on. He said that he had hoped to put his life back on track and to have a career after he left prison in England. He continued to blame the press for his downfall and called them the worst enemy in the world, alleging that they had paid girls in a bar to arrange a photo scoop. Glitter did not comment about his previous conviction for downloading child pornography several years earlier. On June 15, 2006, in a closed hearing, a 3-judge panel of the Supreme People's Court of Vietnam heard Glitter's appeal for a reduced sentence. The appeal was rejected 4 weeks later. Although he was calm throughout the 40-minute reading of the verdict, upon leaving the courthouse, Glitter shouted angrily to reporters and denounced Vietnamese justice for not hearing the defense arguments. On February 7, 2007, his sentence was reduced by 3 months. In anticipation of his release, the Philippines barred Glitter from entering the country as of May 16th of 2008. Glitter was released from prison on August 19th, 2008. He was escorted under police guard to Tan Son Nhat International Airport and put on a flight to London via Bangkok. In Bangkok, he claimed that he had tinnitus and a heart condition and refused to board the flight to London despite the efforts of British police sent to escort him, although they had no jurisdiction to take action. A doctor attending to him airside diagnosed Glitter with costochondritis, prescribed him painkillers, and declared him fit for travel. He refused to leave again. He booked himself into a transit lounge room and claimed that he was a free man. He was refused admission into Thailand as a threat to domestic morality. Thai immigration officials gave him a deadline to leave the country and warned that he would be arrested and deported to the UK if he did not leave voluntarily. On the evening of August 20th, Glitter took a flight to Hong Kong, where he requested medical treatment, claiming that he was suffering a heart attack. The Hong Kong authorities also refused to admit him, and he returned to Thailand the next day. At least 19 countries, including Cuba, Cambodia, and the Philippines, announced that they would refuse entry to Glitter, and on August 21st, the Thai authorities stated that he had agreed to return to the UK. At 7:10 a.m. on August 22, 2008, he arrived at Heathrow Airport, where he was met by British police officers. On his return to the UK, Glitter was added to the sex offenders register for life. He stated an intention to appeal against the decision, but on January 16, 2009, it was announced that he had abandoned the appeal. On June 25, 2008, the Daily Telegraph reported that Glitter planned to record a new album after his prison release. He was quoted as saying, I have an incomplete album that I want to finish. I have been thinking about the plan during my days in jail. I have sung rock and roll for 40 years. After jail, I will continue to rock and roll. In October 2012, ITV aired the documentary The Other Side of Jimmy Savile and His Exposure Strand, which detailed allegations of sexual conduct against Jimmy Savile, who had died the previous year. Accounts included an accusation against Glitter, who was alleged to have raped a 13 or 14-year-old girl in Savile's BBC dressing room. On October 28th, Glitter was arrested and questioned by police in London as part of Operation U-Tree. He was released on police bail until the middle of December and was bailed again until February. On June 5th, 2014, Glitter was charged with 8 counts of sexual offenses committed against 2 girls aged 12 to 14 between 1977 and 1980. On January 19th, 2015, he appeared at Southwark Crown Court accused of 7 counts of indecent assault, 1 count of attempted rape, and 2 other sexual offenses against 3 girls between 1975 and 1980. He was accused of sexually assaulting 2 girls aged 12 to 13 after inviting them backstage to his dressing room, and attempting to rape a girl under the age of 10 after having crept into her bed. The trial lasted 2.5 weeks. On February 5th, he was convicted of attempted rape, 4 counts of indecent assault, and 1 of having sex with a girl under the age of 13. He was acquitted of the 3 other counts. He was remanded and imprisoned at HM Prison Wandsworth prior to his sentencing. On February 27th, he was sentenced to 16 years in prison. On May 2015, he began an appeal against his convictions. On November 17th, his appeal was denied by the Court of Appeal, which ruled that there was nothing unsafe about the conviction. From 2015 to 2018, he was incarcerated at HM Prison Albany. In 2018, he was transferred to HM Prison The Verne, a lower security prison. On February 3rd of 2023, he was released on license after serving half of his sentence due to the sentencing guidelines in place at the time of the historic offenses. On March 13th, 2023, which was last week, he was recalled to prison after a breach of his license conditions. He was trying to consult the advice of other child predators on how to access the dark web. This dude is almost 80 years old. There is no way that you can rehabilitate someone like that. That is a mental illness. But it's not the mental illness that it's like, oh, we need to treat this person because we need to feel bad for this person. It's the mental illness where you need to be like, this person needs to be locked away forever. This is really the reason your career was not where it was. Like, what do you think he's trying to access on the dark web? I'll let you answer that, because this dude is a sick man. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Turn on my post notifications. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate everyone. But anyways, I'm out. Peace.